Hey guys, how are you? Hope you're all doing very well. This evening I'm going to be doing a foreign movie review. This is a drama slash horror slash comedy from Hungary, Hungarian language English subs, released in the year 2006, directed by Georgi Palfi, and this movie is called Taxidermia. And the story to Taxidermia is as follows. Taxidermia contains three generational stories about a grandfather, a father, and a son, linked together by recurring moves. The dim grandfather, an orderly during World War II, lives in his bizarre fantasies. He desires love. The huge father seeks success as a top athlete, a speed eater, in the post-war pro-Soviet era. The grandson, a meek, small-boned taxidermist, yearns for something greater, immortality. He wants to create the most perfect work of art of all time by stuffing his own torso. So this movie takes place in a very bizarre universe, and it details the lives of three generations of this family in Hungary. The first generation is the grandfather. Now, the grandfather is an orderly at during World War II at this farm. Now, this grandfather is a very, very twisted individual. He is desperately seeking love. And to basically get his fix of love, he is fantasizing about these women at the farm. They are not aware that he is looking at them and basically masturbating to them. So it's very, very awkward and disturbing what this guy actually does. And, you do feel sorry for him as well because he's desperately seeking to be loved, but for obvious reasons, no one wants him. So he ends up, one thing leads to another, and he ends up having sex with this guy's wife. Now, the grandfather, this proves dire for the grandfather, which I'm not going to tell you what happens to him, but the wife of this other guy gives birth to the second generation. Now, years pass, and the grandfather's son, who is the father in the story, he grows up to be Hungary's best ever speed eater. Now, this is a very common sport in this movie in Hungary and in the Soviet sort of area, and everybody idolizes these morbidly obese men. So the father is the best ever, and he is continually winning, but he has to juggle his personal life with his sport life, and he's really struggling to do that. But one thing leads to another once again, and they end up having a baby together. Now, this baby is the third generation of the film, which is the son. Now, the son really disappoints the father. The father has since retired. You can see him on the back there. He has lost himself, gained even more weight. Very unrealistic, but as I said, the movie does have a very unrealistic quality. But anyway, the father is continually putting down the son because the son hasn't followed in his father's footsteps. His father wanted him to be a speed eater, but the son is very, very thin. So he's the complete opposite of his father, and he doesn't want to be a speed eater. He is a taxidermist. He's taxiderming these animals, and his biggest goal in life is to create the most beautiful work of art of all time, basically taxiderming himself. So it's a very weird film. I hope I've done a good enough job with the synopsis because, I don't want to give anything away, so the less I say, the better. If you want to know how the movie unfolds, please go out there and see this film for yourself. Now, my thoughts on this movie. This is a very, very different film. This is very European. So if you're not a fan of European stuff, you're a fan of American stuff, I would say stay well away from it because it is very contrasting between European and American. So, but if you are a fan who is looking to branch out into the world of foreign cinema, then this one might be for you. It is a very disgusting film, but yet it is a very beautiful film at the same time. It's very exaggerated, but has a very subtle, real message underneath it. It is a story about a family. Yes, this family is very disturbing, very exaggerated, disgusting, and very dysfunctional, but at the same time it has a level of realism throughout the entire length. Now, these people are the grandfather, disgusting, although, what he wants is true love. So that in itself is beautiful. Everybody deserves to be loved, and you feel sorry for him, but at the same time, that element of disturbing and even comic is there as well. So it kind of plays around with your emotions. Then the second story, once again, disgusting. This guy is morbidly obese. He is speed eating, which is basically all these fat guys chowing down this food as fast as they can, then vomiting it back up at the end. So that was disgusting, but underneath all that, it's a real story about a man who is trying to juggle his stardom as an athlete and his personal life. So I actually thought that was very touching in the way he does that as well. And then, sorry, my nose is very itchy. And then in the last story, it's a case of the son not following in the father's footsteps and basically being a disappointment to the family. So in that way, I felt really sorry for this guy, but at the same time, this guy was disgusting. He was very, very weird. And so once again, it's playing with your emotions. So that is what made the film so good, is that not one genre of the movie, whether it's drama, romance, comedy, horror, not one genre took over. So it was all very finely cut. And that is why you have so many contradicting emotions when you're going into it. And it's just a very unique and very rewarding experience. Now, I will say that it is extreme. There is some very graphic nudity. There is some erect penises. So you don't really see that in American stuff. And that's the reason why I'm saying if you like American stuff, then you might not like European, because it's very contrasting between nudity with European cinema and nudity with American cinema. I actually feel that Europeans are much more confident in their own bodies, and it doesn't disturb them or shock them or offend people so much if they see a penis, or whether it's erect or during a sex scene. I actually felt that they're willing to show more in Europe. Now, whether or not that's a bad or good thing, that's up to the viewer. But it is very evident to see that Europeans are much less offended than they are actually in America. I actually think America are a little bit too scared to make these sorts of films, and I don't feel that if Taxidermia was made in America, it wouldn't have been as good, because it wouldn't have been as daring. So, yeah, I mean, there is some pretty graphic sex scenes as well. I don't know if it was real sex or if it was simulated, but there did appear to be penetration, so I think maybe it was real sex. And once again, you wouldn't see that in American films. So that in itself is the contrasting difference between European and American. And as I said, this is a very, very European film. It is repulsive, absolutely disgusting. Do not watch this movie if you've just eaten or you're about to eat, because it will put you off your food. There is a lot of vomiting. There is a lot of gore at the end. And so, yeah, it really is going to test your gag, your stomach and your gag reflexes as well. The characters were exaggerated, but not to the point where it got ridiculous. Yes, it was exaggerated enough to really make it feel like it was a different dimension. But as I said, there was enough realism to keep it grounded. There was a beautiful story underneath all the insanity and grotesque element that the film had going for it. Now, the cinematography, very bizarre. It was kind of like a Terry Gilliam film, but it was, although I said it, I'm comparing it to a Terry Gilliam film, I'm not saying it's a Terry Gilliam ripoff. It's kind of like a European version of Terry Gilliam. So if that makes sense, yeah, it's very, very bright colouring, and as I said, a very surrealistic atmosphere. So if you like your fantasy type of movies, this one should really appeal to you, but don't expect everything to make sense. Now, where I had the problem was the fact that a few of the stories were a little bit disjointed when they were coming together. So it kind of felt like it cut a lot out, and I actually would have liked the movie to go on a little bit longer, because I felt that each story probably should have gone on for a little bit longer, and it would have greatly benefited the overall piece. The soundtrack, absolutely fantastic. Very European once again. And yeah, the story is just, as I said, it's very touching, but at the same time, absolutely repulsive. The characters are more caricatures rather than real people, which once again gives that other dimension sort of element to it. But overall, it is an extremely rewarding experience. It is extreme. At the end, there is some very intense sort of gore, very disgusting sort of gore. And as I said, the sexuality, in particular, the first story was really uncomfortable. It was bordering on pedophilia, what this guy was actually doing. And yes, it was truly disturbing, but there are moments where you'll be shocked, and then at the next minute you'll be laughing, because that shocking moment is combated with a funny moment. So you never really feel one particular emotion for very long. And that's why it is such a roller coaster type of film. So it isn't a perfect movie. As I said, it's a little bit disjointed between each segment. But yeah, that is only a very minor negative in what was a very rewarding and a very bizarre experience. I've never seen a movie like this, and I'm so glad that I have it in my collection. So if you like European cinema, or you want to see something a little bit different from American cinema, then this one is definitely for you. I am giving this one 4.5 stars. I thought it was brilliant, and yeah, it's definitely one that is going to be remembered for a very, very long time. Absolutely fantastic. So that's my review of the Hungarian film Taxidermia. Hope you enjoyed it, and until next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.